Hi everybody, Robin Nichols back with another cool Photoshop Elements tutorial. Now, we're just going to extend the capabilities of the text tool and show you how to make a business card. So I'm Dodgy John, the used car dealer, and here I've got a car that I want you to buy. So I need to make a business card. Now, one of the most important things to think about when you're making a business card is don't go and stick the text onto a photo. You're not there handing your pictures out in order to impress people. You're there to hand a business card out so that people can read it and go, okay, you're a car dealer, bingo, I know exactly who to call. So having a photograph on a card is a little bit dangerous simply because it can completely overpower the text or vice versa. So you don't want the text and the image, fighting against each other. So question, how big is a business card? Well, how big is a business card? They can be as big or as small as you want. So my first suggestion is to resize your photo to fit the business card model. And 5 by 8 inches is really a bit too big. So I'm going to choose something like, we're going to make it 3 inches wide by 2 inches high, something in that boat. There we go. So let's have a look in centimeters. I might actually make it 12 centimeters wide by 12 by, yeah, that's about right. Okay, so that's fairly small. And I'm going to call this BC business card. There we go. So now we're cooking. And the idea of changing the resolution is simply because if we work really, really carefully on text and stuff, and we get it all the right point size, and then we have to reduce it from 60 megabytes down to 3 megabytes, we're going to lose some sort of detail somehow. So it's much better to start reasonably small and work your way through it. So the next thing to do, of course, is to use the type tool. And as I've said before, there are two types of type. There's the horizontal and the vertical type. We almost never use this. Car dealer, okay. We almost never use this, and I'm going to select this, okay, and I'm going to choose something, I don't know, Euphemia, what's this? I don't know this typeface. So one of the problems, of course, is we have so many typefaces these days, and especially if you're a bit of a collector like I'm, when I see a typeface, I think, gee whiz, I'm going to have one of those. So one of the problems, of course, I'm getting here is it's not fitting in, so I'm going to drastically reduce the typeface. And even if I go like this, I wrote the word car dealer or dealer, dealcam, and you can read here, it's actually not very legible. It's actually not, and this is why I always steer people away from doing this completely, because vertical text is really hard to ledge or read, should I say. So we're going to use horizontal text. Okay, I'm going to call myself car sales Superman. Okay, car sales Superman. All right, now, one of the things about making a business card is, you basically got to fill the text or fill the card, I think. And I'm going to choose something very basic. I'm just going to choose, what am I going to choose? White, okay, because that's pretty legible. And then I'm going to just click into where it says 24 point. I'm going to roll my scroll wheel, okay, roll my scroll wheel, simply so that I can get this to fit almost perfectly. That's pretty cool. Let's go back and treble click it to select the entire sentence, 35 point. Maybe we can go up to 38 point, something like that, or bring it down to 36 point, and click OK. Because I think one of the things about making really cool business cards or really cool things like this is to make sure that what you make is very, very legible. So I've chosen Arial, and let's just choose something. Let's have a look at narrow. So that squashes it in a little bit. Okay, and I'm thinking narrow bold. Let's go narrow bold. That's more interesting. And then I can crank up the point size a little bit more. So again, I'm going to put it back up to, I don't know, 42 point might do the job. Car sales Superman. Okay, and that's looking quite good. And I'm going to use my arrows on my keyboard to line this up. Now, a couple of other things you need to know about working with text is keep the text as big as you can. Okay, keep the text as big as you can. And in fact, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking that's just silly. Car sales Superman, nobody's ever going to buy me. Okay, I'm going to call this, let's call this fancy car sales. Exotic car sales, that's a little bit better. Exotic car sales, all right. So again, I can bump up the text a little bit more. Very important to have the font as big as you can afford to go, simply because when you literally, if you hand a card to somebody, they don't need to have to rush off and get their specs on. They need to go, just pick them and go, okay, I can see who you are, right, no problem. All right, and then what I'm going to do is put my name up there as well. So I'm going to do that on a separate text layer. Ooh, how daring is that? So I'm just going to again click in a second time. And this time I'm putting my text in, my name in, okay, in bold. And there's a very good reason for that. Simply because I want to align my name. And look at that, that just matches almost perfectly. Oh, good, that's a bit spooky, isn't it? I'm going to bring it down a little bit, so bring it down a couple of points. Okay, I don't want it bleeding off. Now, one of the things we need to remember, of course, is if I'm just printing one card, no problem at all. But if I'm having this commercially done, I need to think about bleed lines and cutting lines and trimming lines, because, for example, if I butt my name right up against here, it looks pretty cool. But if I hand it to a printer and they roll them off, thousands, when they guillotine them up, you actually may lose. Your name may come out looking like that. So you have to be a little bit careful, and obviously have to talk to the printer to find out what sort of cut marks or line-up marks they require from you. I'm going to try and make this a little bit bolder. Can I make this go a little bit bolder? Okay, we've got narrow bold. I'm going to add this faux bold on as well. Oops, now that kind of rounds it off a little bit, doesn't it? So maybe I don't like that. So maybe I will just stick with that as it is. And exotic car sales. All right. All right. What I try and do with business cards is, I might actually just put that down here. All right. So that's going to line up at the bottom. Very cool. Now, one of the problems, of course, is putting text on top of photos. Of course, you can't read the photo. So what we'll do here, I think, is this. I'm going to select car sales. In fact, I don't need to select it. I've got it selected in the layer over on the right-hand side. I'm going to go to my effects palette. I'm going to choose stars, and I'm going to choose good old drop shadows. They've never let me down. And I'm going to choose this one, I think. And you can see here, I've put a drop shadow on. That really lifts it off the page quite nicely. Exotic car sales. How cool is that? I might even just put the text on there. Now, if I have a look in my layers palette, look what's happened. As soon as I double-clicked and put a drop shadow on, a little FX appeared. And that is the recipe. If I click it, you'll see that's the recipe there for the drop shadow. Whew. Pretty cool. And the reason we've got the recipe there, before I put that away, is if I decide that, for example, the size, the distance, or the opacity of the drop of the shadow isn't quite set, I can then go and crank it up or reduce it, make it a bit more subtle. So the buttons that you see here are just starter packs, really. All these little settings, and there are dozens, there are hundreds of them. All these settings are just really like starter packs. They get you in the right direction, and if you don't like them, you can get in there and modify them a little bit later. So back to layers, back to my name, back to effects. Let's just again double click that, and I've got a bit of a drop shadow happening there. Maybe I can try something like a bevel. Ooh, get a bit flashier. There we go, Robin Nichols. I'm not sure about that. Sometimes we can actually put too many sort of text effects. Okay, this is, I'm talking from experience here. Yeah, I may not even bother with that. That obscures it. Yeah, so you have to be a little bit careful that when you put these things on, let's have a look here. That's probably a little bit better. It's a little bit clumsy. So I might actually say no to that. So how do I take that off? I can go back to the layers, I can go back to the little FX button, and I can just turn the bevel off like that, just switch it off and click OK. All right, another thing I'm going to do here is something fancy. I want to just duplicate the layer, and I'm going to make this layer go ever so slightly black and white, I think, because the red is pretty strident. So I might just take some of that color out. Okay, because remember what I said, I don't want the photo fighting with the text. All right, so I may just back that color off a little bit more, something like that. And what else can we do? Don't be afraid to try a few things, and I might just change the color. Why not? Let's just go absolutely bongo. There we go. Exotic car sales. All right, so cooking with gas. I might actually do this. I might actually put my mobile phone number in there. Oops. Oh, and that's if I can remember my mobile phone number. I can put it in there. And of course, you guys are doing an exercise here. You don't have to. You can just make something up, anything up. And I need to select it all, and I need to make that much smaller, and I probably need to do something like narrow, just regular. Okay, remember, mobile phone number is pretty darn important, because that's what you want people to remember. They want to just pick it up and go, okay, give this guy a call. Bingo. So I'm going to put that back into white. Okay, so you're beginning to get an idea of how I work here, and that's going to just put that in there. I might even just make it absolutely obvious for people. M:, just in case they don't know what that number is, and then shift that back onto the page. So, tips for making a great business card. Don't prevaricate about it too much. Don't try and give them a beautiful photo, because they're not necessarily looking at the photo, they're looking at your details. So they want to know your name, they want to know what you do, they want to know how to contact you very, very fast. Use the text as bold and as broad as possible. If anything, knock the background back. In this case, I've desaturated the background using the hue saturation tool. You could even make it black and white, or put a graphic filter effect on it just to deaden it down a little bit. But whatever you can do to make it basically slightly less strident. And while I'm just looking at here, I think I might even just put a jolly old drop shadow onto my phone number here. Let's just see if that's going to work a little bit. Possibly. Put even a hard drop shadow. No, maybe it sort of helps. Play around with a couple of things. Think legibility. Think small printing. So if you've got any questions at all, have a look at that. That's probably how big it's going to print, or maybe a little bit bigger. So if you zoom out and it's that sort of size and you think, gee whiz, I can't even read my phone number like that, then you've lost the plot. The phone number has to go bigger. The name has to go bigger. The description of your job has to go bigger. And that very simply how you can create very simple, very creative and very snappy business cards just using Photoshop elements.